Welcome to the channel. Welcome to another episode of Scientology Spy Files. For those of you that are new to the channel, the Scientology Spy Files are about 40,000 internal Scientology documents that mostly have to do with the spy wing of Scientology known as the Office of Special Affairs. The Office of Special Affairs is the rebrand of a Scientology organization called the Guardian's Office, which perpetrated the largest infiltration into the United States government in its history. Scientology operates this Office of Special Affairs in Los Angeles at 6331 Hollywood Boulevard in the Hollywood Guarantee Building. And we're going to cover a woman by the name of Gail Armstrong, who worked in the Office of Special Affairs for at least over a decade. And then she was moved to the international headquarters of Scientology in Gilman Hot Springs, California. Now, I know this because I worked at the international headquarters of Scientology in Gilman Hot Springs, and I actually wrote a whole book about it called Blown for Good Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology. And so I know Gail, and I worked with her for, I'd say, probably about a decade on and off. And when she was in OSA, she was in the PR department in Office of Special Affairs. And when their Scientology holds these events, sort of like conventions, several times a year, all over the United States and in England, and sometimes they have a week of events that happen in the Caribbean on their private cruise ship called the Free Winds. Now, when these events were being written and the speeches for David Miscavige were being written, a lot of times the writers from OSA would help on those speeches, and they would come from Los Angeles. They would travel to the headquarters and they would work on these speeches or video scripts at the international headquarters. Now, Gail was one of these writers who would come up and do this. And eventually, I'd say in the mid 90s, she ended up coming up more and more. And then she was eventually reposted at the international headquarters as a writer in the international management PR area. And this subject or this area of events is heavily micromanaged by David Miscavige. And so anyone who's working on events in any shape or form is very likely going to have to be dealing with David Miscavige, the chairman of the board, Religious Technology Center. And so that's what a lot of these documents are. They're detailing out these relationships and different activities that are going on in relation to David Miscavige. Yeah, that pretty much covers that. For anyone who's not familiar with the Spy Files, we have about 30 episodes of these things. We've covered Tom Cruise's Spy Files. We've covered a lot of Spy Files that are going back and forth to David Miscavige. And one of the first things we like to do is we like to put up a graphic of the key players and who are the people that we're going to be covering in the document. So we're going to do that right now. So first up, we have David Miscavige, chairman of the board, RTC, captain of the C organization. The C organization, by the way, is the group within Scientology where they sign the billion-year contracts. So all of these people that we're going to be talking about are Sea Org members that have signed billion-year contracts, minus Tom Cruise, who is an honorary Sea Org member. So we've got David Miscavige, COB RTC. We've got Tom Cruise, matinee idol. We've got Shelly Miscavige. She's the chairman of the board assistant at the time. And then we've got Larisse Stuckenbrock, who is the COB communicator. It's just another assistant, really. And then we've got Gail Armstrong, who was at OSA and then IMPR, and she was a writer in both places. And she eventually actually went on to become the head of the international management PR area. And we've got Mike Rinder, who was WDC OSA at the time. And then Karen Hollander, who used to work at the Celebrity Center International. She was also moved from Los Angeles to the international headquarters and became the director of events within the IMPR, the Int Management Public Relations division. And then we've got Diana Hubbard, who shows up in this one. That is the daughter of L. Ron Hubbard, and the only one of L. Ron Hubbard's children that is still remains in the Sea organization. Then we've got Heber Jentz, who was the president of the Church of Scientology International. And then we've got some other familiar faces. We get Jeff Hawkins, who is a writer. He's now out, no longer in Scientology. We've got Aaron Mason, who was a writer at OSA, and he also came up to the international headquarters. And then we've got Dan Kuhn, who was a writer and book editor and compilations expert that worked at the international headquarters. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, now we're going to go through, there's a whole bunch of documents that we're going to go through, and these documents are hundreds of pages long. We're not going to read every single one. We're going to cover the sections of these documents where Gail Armstrong is mentioned. And the whole reason we're talking about Gail Armstrong is because there's a bit of a controversy happening right now where Linkin Park, the band Linkin Park, got a new lead singer, and their new lead singer is a person by the name of Emily Armstrong. And Emily Armstrong is Gail Armstrong's daughter. And in order to show the relationship that she may have with Scientology, we're going to cover what the relationship that her mom has with Scientology, and specifically David Miscavige. And then we're going to, at the end, we'll discuss how all of these things affect the decisions and the statements that Emily would have to make in order to retain communication or be able to keep speaking with her mother, who is a very high-level Sea Org member. Okay, so the first document that we're going to cover is a document from this document. Here we go. Oh, I got to rewind it. Sorry here. The first page is from December of 1999. In addition to internal documents that are going back and forth in these 40,000 pages of documents, there are also transcripts of tons of different video productions that Scientology created. And it's basically, these are the transcripts of those videos. This is an event that happened in 1999. And it's like a chronological series of little vignettes on what happened over the decades where L. Ron Hubbard was doing stuff and what the Sea Org was working on. Now, this document right here starts in the 1970s, 1980s, and it's talking about, and you can see it up on the screen, it says Solo to OT3, the Wall of Fire. Now, OT3, the Wall of Fire, that's where in Scientology you find out about the space aliens, all the cooties, the space alien cooties that people have on them that affect irrational behaviors. And L. Ron Hubbard figured out a way to locate and evict space cooties. And that all starts at operating Phaeton level 3. And they're talking about the development of these courses and these space cootie processes in this video. And on a few pages in, you'll see that we see our first highlights here, and that is where Gail Armstrong shows up. And this is just an interview that she had done, and it shows what she said in the video. I'm just showing this so you can sort of see a timeline of some of the things that she did and participated in. And this is just literally her saying, we got people onto planes, we got people onto buses, we got people onto planes, we got people onto trains, and then that's it. That's the entire involvement of Gail in this video. Okay, so then it goes on a little bit more, and this thing goes through. All of these documents will be posted, and there's a link in the description. These are going to be hosted by Tony Ortega and from the Underground Bunker, who's been covering Scientology for decades. And he has a repository of all sorts of Scientology articles. And if you want to download these, you can go to his site below and you can download all these documents, the entire documents. Okay, so the next document is from 24 June 2003, and then it looks like it was revised on 26 June 2003. And they, when I was telling you about these events that Scientology has, and there's a series of events that happens every year in the Caribbean on the Scientology cruise ship, the Free Winds, and that is called the Maiden Voyage Anniversary Week of Events. And every June, it's in June 6th is the anniversary date, but that whole week, in the second week of June, or the mid to first week of June, a series of events take place on this cruise ship every single night. And what they normally have happen is David Miscavige does a special briefing to all of these highest of highest Scientology members, the ones who pay money. And these are people that have to have achieved level OT7 or OT8. And they have paid millions of dollars over the course of many years to get themselves all the way up and do all the space cootie processes and get rid of all of their space cooties so that they can come to this event. And David Miscavige tells them what's going on in Scientology. And usually they have a theme for each night. So one night, maybe the first night could be about all the international expansion that's taking place in Scientology. And they might have a speaker. David Miscavige will speak. He might introduce another speaker, and then they might show a video or two. Now, that happens every single night. And the introduction to the videos is a speech. The speech that David Miscavige delivers is a speech that has to be written. The video that is going to be shown that night is usually scripted and shot before the week of events. But the speeches, for some reason, David Miscavige, he does not like to give enough direction to his staff for them to be able to write the speeches. And every single event, I want to say for many, many years, every single event, every single video speech, every single video script, everything has to be done by David Miscavige. If somebody else writes it, he will rewrite it, and then it'll go back and forth. And it's essentially up until he delivers the speech. There's usually days and days of people staying up around the clock getting the speech ready for him and him rejecting it. And then eventually, when he finally does need the speech and he's going to deliver it, he'll just write it himself and do it. And so most everything up until that point is just a giant waste of time. Okay, so for some reason for this event, Karen Hollander, who at the time was the director of events, international management, public relations, for some reason she felt the need to basically create a diary of what every single thing that happened and everything that went wrong and who screwed what up. And she felt the need to document this entire week. And in doing so, she calls out Gail Armstrong on most of the things that she wrote and had to be rewritten by David Miscavige throughout this document. And it also gives you a little glimpse into I want to say the high school production and the high school drama fest that goes on within the Sea organization. This document, I mean, if you can download this document and read it, I'm going to try to explain most of the stuff so you can get an idea of what's going on. It's very heavily codified with Scientologies and abbreviations and people and names and places. So I'm going to kind of try to take you through it, at least the sections where Gail Armstrong is covered. And this by far is the largest document. The other ones are pretty, small, very few mentions of Gail. But at the end of this, I have an amazing surprise that I think you're going to love. So stick around to the very end. Gail, we're gonna document it as every mention of Gail Armstrong that we have in our files. We're going to show you tonight in this thing. Okay, so it says, debrief of MV. I'm just going to move over to another screen so I can read it a little easier because it's pretty small up on my screen here. But it says debrief of MV, And I'm going to just read this first part because this will make it make sense a little bit more for the rest of it. But it says, this is a debrief of the week at the Maiden Voyage from my hat as director of events. There were numerous flubs, hats not worn, and sabotage actions by the IMPR office staff aboard, which generated tremendous dev T and overwork for Department 21. Okay, dev T is a made up Scientology word that means developed traffic, which just basically means nonsense or wasting people's time. And Department 21, if you ever see the words Department 21, that is in reference to David Miscavige. He is in Department 21 of Religious Technology Center. And so he is just referred to as Department 21, and in a lot of cases, COB. And they use both in this document. So if it says Department 21 or it says COB, we're talking about David Miscavige, chairman of the board, COB RTC. Okay. There were numerous flubs, hats not worn, and sabotage actions by the IMPR office staff aboard, which generated tremendous dev T and overwork for Department 21, as well as staff within CINE. CINE is the division of Golden Era Productions that produces the events, the videos, and the films, and any audiovisual products that come out of Scientology are produced by Golden Era Productions. And the CINE is a division within Golden Era Productions, and also audio is another division of Golden Era Productions. And many of those Sea Org members from CINE and audio travel to these events, and they basically set up an entire production facility on this cruise ship, a full truck, like the truck that records and switches the Super Bowl. They make a mobile version of that and install it into this cruise ship for this week of events. It's at least, let's say, $500,000 worth of equipment is rented and set up at this facility, and for this week of events that goes on. $500,000 is the rental price or the cost of doing this week of events down in the Freewinds. Okay, sabotage of the IMPR office. Despite the inaction and sabotage of the IMPR office, CINE and audio did do their part and pulled off stellar events. Following is a debrief of what occurred in the sequence of Maiden Voyage, starting with right before IMPR staff left the base. When they say base, that's the int base. I have noted the outnesses for correction purposes. First off, correction, that just means that the staff are going to go to somebody and they're going to have to they're going to have to bone up on Scientology writings to figure out why they messed up, and so they don't mess up again. First off, every speech for COB, with the exception of the introduction to the CC Paris St. Hill Size announcement on management night, Diana wrote. Diana is Diana Hubbard, and they dunk on Diana big time in this document too. And in an intro to the Freewind speech, Gail wrote, and that's Gail Armstrong, was totally rewritten by him. So basically every single speech, except for these two speeches, was totally rewritten by David Miscavige. So we're talking about maybe 3 or 4 speeches or introductions or visuals for every single one of these nights that we're going to cover. Had to be written by David Miscavige himself. People who did not wear their hats on this were, and then it just goes in to this document and goes through all these different people. Aaron Mason was this speechwriter from LA. We covered him. We're not going to read about that. You can read that if you want. The writing officer, Diana Hubbard, did not get a product on any of these speeches with the exception of the intro to CC Paris. CC is a celebrity center. It's a Scientology organization they have for French celebrities. Prior to leaving for the ship, Diana, whenever they say ship, that just means Freewinds. Diana did get with Jeff Hawkins, go Jeff Hawkins, to work with him. Jeff Hawkins is out and exposing Scientology. Jeff Hawkins to work with him on rewriting the LRH lecture release speech for opening night. She worked with him for 48 hours prior to our leaving the ship. Diana stated that Jeff Hawkins wrote it and she edited it. However, later on the ship, when COB said the speech was a complete bust and asked her who wrote the speech, she responded that Jeff Hawkins and Dan Kuhn did it and never made mention that she had also worked on it. Okay, in the Sea Org, if David Miscavige asks you why something's messed up, the most common response is, he did it. And so Diana tried to throw Jeff Hawkins and Dan Kuhn under the bus because they're not there and they can't defend themselves. And then she could kind of skate and get out of why that's script or speech was a dog's breakfast. Okay, then it goes down to, it says she did not attempt to work on any of the other COB speeches that had been rejected, which her junior wrote, and per post responsibility, she should have bypassed and handled or assigned to her second speechwriter, Gail Armstrong. So basically, Diana Hubbard is the writing officer, and under her are Aaron Mason, who's a writer, and Gail Armstrong, who's a writer. 3, speechwriter. Although Aaron wrote almost every Department 21 speech that were rejected, Gail did write the finale speech and MC introduction for the Able speech in the IAS night for COB, and these were rejected and rewritten by him. As noted above, Gail did write the intro for the Freewind speech after Aaron's was rejected. Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm not sure if this is going to take too long, but I'm going to keep going. Director of events. Okay, director of events is Karen Hollander, the person who's writing this document. I did not write any of the COB speeches when factually I should have picked these up and worked with the writing officer, Diana, to get them done before Department 21 had to do them. The only speeches that I worked on writing was the Freewind speech, and then also wrote the Able speech with Gail. Although she had done the majority of that writing, I studied the research and beefed up the stories. Okay, so one of the other things that's a little, I'm going to forward here. I'll forward this thing to the thing we're reading here right now, at the very top of the page there. When these speeches are happening on the stage, there's a thing where David Miscavige wants to have visuals, so pictures, like a slideshow happening. And on the stage, on either side of the stage, there's monitors, there's big image magnification on either side of the stage. So while he's talking, they're supposed to be showing pictures of the things that he's talking about. So the way these speeches have to be written is they get a really good story of something that's happening in Scientology, and then they need to kind of fluff it up. And the way they do that is they send a shoot team down there, or they get the person that's creating this news or the event or whatever David Miscavige is talking about. They get that person to have a lot of photos taken. And if the photos are good enough, then they will show them as what's called visuals on the side. You're going to see a lot of references to visuals. That's what they're talking about, or just the slides and videos that are playing on the side screens while the speaker is speaking. Okay, departure. And now this is literally going to go blow by blow. And this is seriously detailed nonsense, but Gail Armstrong's in here, and it shows the relationship and the day-to-day life of Gail Armstrong for the week that she's doing this. So you can get an idea of what she's doing in this time of 2003. Departure, Tuesday night, 10 June. The day we left, the DER PR info made a full set of speeches for the week, all speeches for the week, and turned them over to COB's office so he could have them on his flight to the ship. Note, I never QC'd this pack, that's quality control. I never QC'd this pack before Donatella sent it, so I did not catch the fact that the finale speech that Gail Armstrong wrote was not included in the pack, nor did Gail ensure her speech was included or turn it over. This caused Dev T later, which is covered below. The rest of us, Edie Int, that's Executive Director Edie Int, that's Guillaume Lesev, the temporary acting commanding officer, CMO International, Watchdog Committee, FB, which is Flag Bureau. That's just the management part of Scientology. IMPR, Diana, Gail, JM. That's Jean-Michel. He's like a props guy for the, he makes trophies for the management that they give out at these events. And I departed later that evening to fly to the ship through the night. However, before we went to LAX, the commanding officer, CMO, received a rush package from COB's office. It was copies of the IAS night speeches and the management speech from Department 21 with his written rejects that he did while en route to the ship. So while Dave Miscavige was on his little private jet going to the free winds, he went through their speeches and rejected them. As we had not slept for 48 hours, and Department 21 made a notation to fix the able speech when fresh. So he knows that these people are not sleeping, and that's usually why most of this stuff is a dog's breakfast. So he will specifically tell them, I want you to do this once you've slept. Okay, and you're going to love what fresh is. I'm pretty sure she'll say. As we had not slept for 48 hours, and Department 21 made a notation to fix the able speech, quote unquote, when fresh, IMPR Diana, Gail, and I slept for 4 hours while en route to Miami. In Miami, we used the 3-hour layover to work on fixing the speeches. The temporary acting commanding officer, CMON, had already fixed his legal speech. Wednesday, 11 June. Okay, let's just keep going and we'll go down to where Gail shows up again. Okay, this is it. Okay, let's forward this one here too. Skadoosh. Okay. When we, okay, let's just see. Okay, I'm going to read this last little part of this other page real quick because this is a crazy thing. It says, I sent a comm to DER PR Info, Donatella, to find out the most recent data on the Palestinian student and to ensure there wasn't any new data that would make it undesirable to cover the story. Okay, meanwhile, the acting temporary CMOI, EDINT, and WDCFB went down to the green room to see Department 21. We, Diana, Gail, IMPR, and myself got settled into the conference room and set up for production and worked for several hours. We then showered and changed for dinner and got into uniform. After dinner, we went to see Department 21 in the green room. He briefly went over the week and what needed to get done. We let him know that Heber was arriving on Saturday. Department 21 then noted that I was in the gold uniform and said I needed to wear whites like the other speakers, EDINT, COCMOINT, and WDCFB, since I was an INT speaker. So Karen Hollander is in Golden Era Productions, but the people that are speaking at the event are in international management. They're executives that are higher than Golden Era Productions. So, but even though she's in Golden Era Productions, he wants her to dress up like one of the international executives because she's going to be doing a speech, and he doesn't want it to appear that some gold person is this one doing the speech, but an international management spokesperson. Okay. Oh my goodness. I then contacted home and had my whites sent out for the next day while borrowing whites to immediately change into that night. So she borrowed another SEERG member's clothes to wear so that she would immediately comply to his order. And then somebody rush FedExed a package of her clothes from California to come there so that she could be wearing the thing that David Miscavige wanted her wearing. Note for correction, the outness here is that COB had to point this out, as opposed to my working out what I should wear, since I was also wearing the hat of an international speaker. We worked that night on speeches for the week and secured around 5 a.m. So when they say secured, that means when they shut everything down, cleaned up, and went to bed. So they went to bed at 5 a.m. Okay, now let's fast forward to the next page where we're going to see a highlight. Okay, good. So it's a few pages ahead. Again, if you guys want to read these in full, you can download them and read all the craziness in its full glory. Okay, so it says in the middle here, it says, during this time, Gail was majorly on the Able speech and working with Dan Sherman, who had done an extensive review of it with many notes on how to upgrade the writing of it. Gail worked on this Thursday and Friday under Dan Sherman's direction. Dan Sherman is the official L. Ron Hubbard biographer, and he worked on a biography about LRH for about, I think I want to say about 15 years, and then he passed away and never finished it. Rest in peace, Dan. Okay, next is a few pages forward. Oh my goodness. I got to make sure I don't miss this section of the of what happened to this student. Oh my gosh. Hopefully I don't miss it. We'll keep going forward. Here we go. Okay, so note for correction. Okay, good. It says, during this day, Gail continued working on the Able speech again with Danny. And then it covers that on the next page. Okay, let's just see. There's a bunch of nonsense about the pictures from the base didn't come, and Diana blamed this on Jeff, and all this back and forth, and false report and cover-ups. Aaron Mason messed it up. Okay. Yeah, pages and pages. I'm just looking for the next Gail thing. Okay, here we go. Oh, this is a great one. Okay, so if you guys have read my book, there's a whole chapter about this kid named Power Coleman. And this is an entire page about Power Coleman. So if you want to see that, it's in the document, and Power is up to all kinds of nonsense in this document too. Okay, next thing with Gail. Okay, good. Here we go. 16 June, Monday. Okay, so now it's the first night of these events. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that was just staying up all day and all night trying to get all these speeches done. Now it's time. The events are going to happen. And now everything has to be done because David Miscavige is going to come out on the stage and he's going to read the speech. So it's got to be done. Okay, 16 June, Monday, management night. Once Edie Ent was up, he began rehearsing the management speech. IMPR worked with him on this speech for pronunciation and delivery. Edie Ent, Guillaume Lesève, is French, and he speak of the French, very heavy accent, French accent. And this usually doesn't go well when he's doing speeches because David Miscavige just dunks on him full time the entire time he's talking, and just what they call bull baiting. Like basically you're messing with somebody while they're doing something. IMPR worked with him on his speech for pronunciation and delivery. Gail and I remained on the lines to ensure all visuals came in from the IMPR office back home. The truck was working flat out to get the visuals done. The truck is reference to this broadcast truck that switches and creates all the visuals and plays back. You know, when you're watching the Super Bowl and they play back a replay, the same device that they play the replays back with is the device that the visuals for these events get loaded into. It's an instantaneous cue system that's all ready to go. And as soon as Dave Miscavige says, walkie-talkie, they show the picture of the walkie-talkie or whatever it is. Space Cooties. They show pictures of Space Cooties. Okay. Okay, next page. Here we go. Okay, good. Another thing came up during that afternoon. Well, let me make sure I didn't. Okay, good. Another thing came up during that afternoon. Diana had been working with the ED Celebrity Center Paris, who then wrote an acceptance speech for the St. Hill Size Award. Diana and Gail reviewed it and thought it was good, but too long, about 4 minutes. In it, the ED had acknowledged and thanked COB and RTC for removing arbitraries and for all the direction Elaine received. That's the captain or the ED of the Celebrity Center, stating that this was why they were finally able to achieve St. Hill size. Gail had been working on reducing the length of the acceptance speech and making some edits. She asked Diana if it was okay to have this part in his acceptance speech, and Diana was adamant it should be deleted as she felt it would create a hidden data line. That's the thing in Scientology where if you say you got something from David Miscavige, that it didn't come from L. Ron Hubbard and it came from some other source, that's called a hidden data line or some secret way of getting information. By the way, it's policy in any speech that someone is given an award that at the end of their speech, they 100% thank David Miscavige. And also sometimes it's okay if they thank L. Ron Hubbard as well. Okay. COB assistant investigated and questioned Diana on this, and Diana admitted she took this out. Diana had it thoroughly justified. After that, Diana remained on C deck and off of the management night and production of any other events. Okay, so C deck is like the crew deck, where you go if David Miscavige doesn't want you to be, if he doesn't want to see you, you go to C deck because he's not going down to C deck. Okay. This whole incident created further interbulation during the event evolution. Interbulation is just it's called it means interbulated theta. It's a phony Scientology word that just means emotional distress or havoc. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay. Then the last at the end of the page says, Gail and I submitted the IES speeches to Department 21 late that afternoon, having dropped the Middle East TWTH story and replacing it with 2 short TWTH anecdotes and the TWTH Venezuelan story. TWTH is the way to happiness. It's a little booklet of like helpful things that L. Ron Hubbard wrote. It's like the 10 Commandments Scientology style. Okay, now I do have to go find this thing real quick. Basically, the guy that we talked about where they didn't know if he was going to be okay or not, he was arrested for being a terrorist. So that story didn't end up getting done. And that is in this document. Okay, let's keep going. Next page. Gail Heber and I remained up working and around by midnight. CCR, that's Larice Stuckenbrock, COB com for whatever. They call her CCR, called us to the green room to see COB. Since the president, IASA, that's the International Association of Scientology, since the president, IASA, was with us, she came as well. He then asked if the speeches were okay. So he basically is quizzing them. Okay, I'll just read it. COB asked if he had the IES speeches, and I told him we had submitted them that day. He stated that he had not yet looked at the speeches. He asked if we included anything in the ABLE speech about Bonetta Slaughter's work and all the actions she was doing on educational lines. He stated that Bonetta had been telling him a lot of incredible actions and advances she had been doing, and he made mention that guys come to see these events and expect to have their news covered. I told him that we had not, since we revised the speech and were saving that news for his opening in the October IAS anniversary event when he would cover Spanish Lake's grand opening. He then asked if the speeches were okay for him as the chairman of the board to now review. Both Gail and I said yes. He said he would be reading the IAS speeches the following day in the afternoon. During this brief meeting with COB, he also spoke to Heber and said he didn't know if Heber would deliver the ABLE speech or not. However, Heber should learn something while on the ship. COB told Heber to report to Matt Price the next morning at 9:30 a.m. and work in the truck doing whatever they needed. The idea was for Heber to learn about what it takes for the CINE guys in the truck and the other lines of pulling off an event. Heber stated that he'd report in at 9:30 a.m. So David Miscavige has basically made the president of Church of Scientology International an assistant to the guy that loads the visuals into the computer and makes them show up on the sides of the screen. When Gail and I went back down to C deck, the president IAS came to see us. She said that she had a lot of concern about the ABLE speech, specifically a TWTH story we had included, a carpet salesman short anecdote who changed a couple's life with giving the way to happiness, with 2 other way to happiness stories. She also asked us to review the speech again to ensure we were not making a mistake by excluding the data Bonetta was telling COB. Bonetta Slaughter is a high-level Scientologist who used to be the executive director of the Applied Scholastics located in Spanish Lake, I want to say it's in the Midwest somewhere, in Oklahoma maybe, or Missouri or Kansas or something like that. Tom Cruise is the one who opened it later that year. Gail and I reviewed the speech newly and decided to make changes. We secured around 2 a.m. that night to get sleep so we could revise the speech when fresh. 17 June, Tuesday, ASI night. ASI is the Authors Services International or Incorporated. It's the literary agent for L. Ron Hubbard that gets royalties on everything that he writes. On Tuesday morning, INPR gave me a communication that she had written to the CO Gold, the commanding officer Gold, requesting not to work in the bilges. Oh, so when Diana, morning INPR gave me a Okay, so somebody else, I don't know who INPR is in this, the person who is holding the int management public relations, got assigned to the bilges, I guess, in this somewhere. That's probably covered somewhere up in the document. So one of David Miscavige's favorite things to do is when he's on the free winds, if you mess up as part of the event crew or just a part of the ship, the free winds crew, is if you mess up and he doesn't like it, then you get to go and clean the bilges of the cruise ship, which usually involves getting heavy amounts of diesel oil covering your entire body. You don't wear any kind of protective anything, maybe some gloves if you're lucky, but you're going to have diesel fuel in your pores by the end of the day. Okay, so whoever was INPR was trying to get out of the bilges, and this person, the commanding officer Gold, who at this time was a person by the name of Lisa Schroer. Mitch Brisker talks about Lisa Schroer in his book, and it may be the most accurate, succinct description of Lisa Schroer that's ever been done. So if you want to see that and find out more about Lisa, you got to read Mitch's book. Okay, Gail and I immediately got the able speech revised. We deleted the 2 short Way to Happiness anecdotes, beefed up the Venezuelan TWTH story a bit, and then added more at the end of the Spanish Lake section. We got this through CMO Int for his okay. Oh, that's the other thing. All of these executives that are there on this ship, they all have to approve it before Dave sees it. And that usually adds quite a bit of time and back and forth, which will inevitably end up in David Miscavige not getting as fast as he wants to. And then when he ever asks who's got it, whoever's got it to approve will usually reject it and then say, oh, I just rejected it. Okay. The rehearsals for the ASI night were overseen by COB and CO Gold after lunch. INPR office had nothing to do with this night, except Gail did some editing on the speech when we were at the base before coming to the ship, and it was the smoothest running night of the cruise. This is Karen Hollander throwing herself under the bus, basically saying, this was the night we had nothing to do with, and it was the smoothest night. You have to whip yourself when you write these things so that everybody doesn't think you're on some kind of high horse. Okay, during this day, are we in the right place? Yeah. Am I on the wrong page here? There we go. During this day, both Gail and I remained on standby for the in-execs to provide anything they needed while they prepared for the Friday seminar COB was going to conduct. The int execs are the ones who totally worked on writing the seminar copy for all of the videos. Okay, so they're talking basically about usually the week of events, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On Friday, during the day, David Miscavige will do a very kind of sort of impromptu seminar to all of these Scientologists. And it's basically in Scientology, it's like getting a private audience with the Pope, where he's going to tell you the latest thing that's being worked on in Scientology. And he's going to tell you, and only you, nobody else is going to know any of this, as this video is not necessarily going to go anywhere. So the people in this room are the only ones that are going to hear it. It's a big treat for them. that they get to hear directly from David Miscavige. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff about COB yelling at Diana and Diana walking out and basically ghosting him and say that she's out of there. And then Heber. Okay, then Heber. Okay, I'm just going to read a little bit of this just because this kind of gives you an idea of how David Miscavige interacts with Sea Org members. Heber and I were in the truck again that night for the event. It came off flawlessly. COB came to the truck after the event and told Gary that within the first 5 minutes of watching Mr. Javier Ruiz, a blown SO member now, he's not in the Sea Org anymore. After 5 minutes of watching Mr. Javier Ruiz, he realized he was dealing with the wrong people. Meaning in Mr. Ruiz, he had a staff member B. That's a good staff member. With those of us that have been speakers for INT events, myself, Heber, Mr. Rinder, EDN, Mr. Yeager, Senior CSN, etc., were the staff member A's, the can't be done staff members. Although I didn't hear every word, I got the intention of his comm and later spoke to Gary, who confirmed this as the basic communication. Gary is Gary Weesey. He's the guy who's the truck. He's the head of the truck. He's the chief editor, Golden Era Productions, in the video and film department. And he's also the guy who's always the head of the truck. And he's the guy in the truck that goes, camera one, preview, camera one, take, camera two, take. He's the guy who basically calls which camera they're going to bring up during the live event and switch to it and show visuals and cue the visuals and all that good stuff. Okay, I had Heber and Gail send out both legal and able speeches to DER PR Info. I also had them send the legal speech to OSA Int for the PRs there to read and help come up with ideas for visuals for the speech, as there were definite holes and a new story Mr. Rinder had added. They're talking about Mike Rinder there. Then there's some more talking about Power Coleman. Okay, good. There's a bunch of Gail stuff here. And we are almost through this document, guys. The IS handling the event said I would handle it, but it took Gail also confirming it. Gary then told me that he expected me to stay up and handle the visuals for both speeches, not rely on Jacqueline, but me handling on a phase one. That's when the senior takes over for the junior and does the work while the junior helps or does whatever. You do it because the junior's not getting it done. That's phase one. Phase two is when you move away and let the junior do the work and you make sure they're doing it correctly before you go back to letting them do their own job. He stated this would determine if I had really changed and was actually going to step over the line, meaning start demonstrating I was the right team and not being an enemy. These are Sea Org members talking to each other. I told him I would do it. Gail and I and Heber for most of the night stayed up through the night and worked through Wednesday to chase in all visuals in coordination with Abel, OSA, and the DER PR Info and the OACC. I think that's just the person who rounds up all the visuals. I don't remember what that stands for. 18 June, Wednesday, day off for passengers. On Wednesday, Gail and I continued to get all of the visuals for the IAS night speeches. Around dinner time, COB had Mr. Rinder, Gail, and I come to see him. He had gone through the legal speech and wanted a few things handled, and then stated that he'd only gotten through the first 2 pages of the able speech and went over with us what was wrong. First off, the setup was too statistic oriented and hype. It lacked purpose and high ground approach, so the first step needed to be rewritten. He then stated that the opening of the first story, Criminon in Lukop, I think that's in South Africa, had, or someplace foreign that I don't know, had slant in the beginning that wasn't good and was black PR. That just means it's bad PR for Scientology, or it's talking bad about Scientology in some way. He told us to go and fix these, and he would send down pages as he went through the speech. Over the next 30 minutes, Mr. Sullivan is Amber O'Sullivan, which is Claire's cousin, who Claire, my wife, who works for David Miscavige as an assistant type, like steward type person. Over the next, if you're in the Sea Org, whether you're a female or a male, if you're in a senior organization or a senior Sea Org member, lower Sea Org members call you Mr. regardless if you're a man or a woman. Mr. Sullivan brought pages of the Able speech down for Gail and I to handle. The major section that needed to be fixed was the Narconon section, again, not written from a high purpose, and then take off the things that we added about Bonetta's advances with study tech in the Missouri state, as this section did not work in the speech. Well, I guessed right on Missouri. I did guess 4 other states too, but Missouri was one of them. COB also said that he was rewriting the MC Able intro. So he's the master of ceremonies. And so the MC Able intro is his speech to introduce the Able speaker who's going to speak about Able, or if there's an Able video. Gail and I took too long to get this speech revised, which required the CO Gold sending down staff to product officer us to get it done. That just means when in the C organization, a product officer is somebody who gets things done. Any executive can be a product officer. And the act of basically badgering and bullying a product out of a Sea Org member is called product officering. It's a thing. L. Ron Hubbard teaches you how to basically badger this person and torment them until they get the work done, and in effort to get them to do it on their own and not have you come to have to force it out of them. So the CO Gold was the one doing that to Gail and Karen to get the speech revised. This was vital because we needed to get the revised speech back to COB, get it put up in the prompter, the teleprompter that David Miscavige is going to read. All of these speeches have to get given to like 8 different people because the stage manager needs to know the cues, the visuals people need to know their cues, and all of the speech has to be loaded into the teleprompter and formatted so that it can move on these one-way glass mirrors that David Miscavige is going to read, or whoever the speech the speakers are. This was vital because we needed to get the revised speech back to COB, get it put in the prompter, and give it to the truck for visuals. During the time we worked on the speech, Mr. Rinder was drilling the legal speech in the Starlight. The theater in the Free Winds where they do all these events is called the Starlight Cabaret. And it has a ceiling that has little fiber optic, little sparkly lights in the ceiling. So it's called the Starlight. Gail and I didn't finish the revisions on Able until around 11:30 p.m. Okay, next page. They submitted it. I'll just write this. We submitted it to COB, and then I went over to the edits with Megan. That's Megan Oldfield, so they could be put in the prompter. Megan is also a blown Sea Org member, no longer in the Sea Org. Around 12:30 a.m., I went through this speech once on the teleprompter in the Starlight. I did not do well, so it was so Karen looked like she was possibly going to deliver this speech. Around 12:30 a.m., I went through the speech once on the teleprompter in the Starlight. I did not do well, so it was determined I needed to go to the truck and go through my visuals with Gary and Kim and then go to bed and get some sleep. COB then saw Mr. Rinder, Gail, and I. He had not read through the speeches, but gave it back to Mr. Rinder to review again. COB had rewritten the intro leading into my speech and wanted us to read that and ensure the beginning of the Able speech took off from that. After I finished in the truck, I went to the conference room on C deck where Gail was rewriting the first 3 paragraphs of the speech. She was going over it with Mr. Rinder. I reviewed it, and then Gail wanted to tighten it up a bit more. Mr. Rinder and I both secured around 3 a.m. since we were speaking the next night. Yeah, if you're going to speak at an international Scientology event, you should at least have 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Okay, 19 June, Thursday, IAS night. Okay, let's go to the next page. Okay, good. So I got with Gail and we started working on the planning and programming for the IAS event. This is an event that's now going to happen in October. This is not an event that's going to be happening here, I don't think. Maybe it is. She doesn't say IAS night. She says IAS event. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We started working on the planning and programming for the IAS event. That's an event that takes place in England, in St. Hill Manor in East Grinstead in England. So I got with Gail and we started working on the planning and programming for the IAS event. I also went to see IMPR and Diana. They were continuing their work on the treatments for the IAS medal winners. Okay, yeah, so this is for the October event. So they're already bailing on doing stuff for this event. Around 2 a.m., Barbara Mace came to see me. That's a gal that worked in the truck she was the administrative person who would round up all these visuals for the truck. She told me that the intros extras that Diana wrote for the videos were not okay by Gary. She said Gary was in the truck going through them. Excuse me. As I was speaking to her, I saw Diana and IMPR leaving to secure for the night. First, I went up to see Gary in the truck and take back the intro extras so that Gail and I could fix them. When I returned to C Deck, I had Gail go and get up IMPR, and we spoke to Diana before she secured. Holy moly. We're almost there, guys. When IMPR came back from her cabin, she stated that Eve, the Cine Esto, that's just the girl that's there's so many craziness in this. That's the girl. Her name is Eve Stumpke, and she is the Cine Establishment Officer, Esto. And she is basically just somebody who is supposed to keep track of people and make sure they're working and they're doing their jobs. Had told both of them when IMPR came back from her cabin, she stated that Eve Ciniesto had told them both to secure, to go to sleep. I told her it wasn't okay that they were just leaving with no communication to Gail and I when all the rest of us were staying up to work on the next day. I told her there was no team, quote unquote, as everyone was doing their own thing and not in calm, and this was destructive. She saw this. Diane and IPR stayed up about another hour along with Gail and I to ensure the execs, who were flat out working on the seminar, were provided anything they needed for the seminar. Diana and I secured around 3 a.m. and then IMPR secured around 4 a.m. Gail and I remained up until around 6:30 a.m. to be on call for the execs if something was needed. Gail also finalized and fixed the intro extras and took the copies to Gary in the truck. Holy moly, Karen. It's a lot of excruciating detail for a bunch of nonsense. Note for correction. I'm confronting. Okay, this is another note for correction from Karen. She's going to whip herself a little bit more. Note for correction. I'm confronting the ethics aspect of my poor performance and the consequences of what I did. On the correction side, I have also looked at the actions that I dropped, which I normally do get a product on as a speaker. A number of these were not done due to the fact Gail and I did not produce an approvable speech early on. Had I done that, I could have rehearsed it, worked out all the points per the stage manners policy letter. None of that was done. I never went through the full speech one full time with the last corrections. I had only gone through half of it. None of this excuses any of the flubs and my worst delivery ever. So basically, she did the speech the night of the event and she boofed it, and then they have to edit it, and it's a giant mess. If you boof your speech or mess it up, a lot of times David Miscavige, when the event is all done and over, he'll make the person go back up on the stage and redo their speech so they can re-record it, so then they can cut around that with that additional footage. 20 June, Friday, on OT Ambassador Seminar. Is that the right one? Yeah. IMPR, Gail, Diane, and I watched the seminar delivered by COB. This lasted beyond dinner time. Okay. Exciting. Okay. We, IMPR, Gail, Diana, and I studied all of the data on proposed winners and the 20 additional Scientologists that the president's PR and Terry had compiled to see if there was a better name. We went over this at length and decided that Wendy would be the best, worked out to be with the president, PR, and Terry, how she could have accomplishment in the next 6 weeks, i.e. what would really work to make a killer story. Okay, so they're talking about these IES medal winner videos that they're going to do at this IES event, which is happening. This is in June. It's going to be happening in October in England for the 2003 IES event that happens in England. And the person that was going to maybe get the award was this woman named Wendy Honor from Tasmania. And she did end up getting the award. And she's also left Scientology and she's spoken out against them. Okay. I then I got with WDCFB. That's the Watchdog Committee Flag Bureau. That's just the Sea Org member that's oversees the Flag Bureau and making sure that the things they're supposed to do, they're doing. And I don't remember who this was at the time. I think it was a Barbara McHenry, if I recall correctly. I then got with WDCFB and find out what he and WDC Ship, that's the Watchdog Committee member for the ship, and that was Sue Price, the mother of that guy Matt Price that was mentioned earlier. That his mom is the commander of the ship, the WDC member of the ship. Okay. He described what they intended to do and gave me a list of the things to get set up for the next morning. IMPR, Gail, Heber, and I got these things sorted out and then secured around 3 a.m. 21 June, Saturday, WDC ship meetings with OT ambassador groups. Okay, to keep these Scientologists busy when they get all the way up to the OT levels, there's nothing left for them to do. So Scientology puts them to work getting other people to become OT Scientologists to keep coming up, and they keep them busy with things to do in their community, and that's called the OT ambassador group, the Operating Thetan ambassador groups. IMPR, Gail, Heber, and I were on deck around 9:30 a.m. to ensure the meetings were all set up. Okay, let's skip down to finale. Around 3 p.m., the CO Gold called me and asked if we had COB's finale speech. Gail had brought a copy, but it needed editing based on the final events as they had occurred during the week, as well as the final comps, which I rounded up. Gail made these changes in the speech, but then turned it over to this teleprompter and truck by about 3:30 p.m. It was during this time that I discovered the speeches turned over to Department 21 prior to his leaving the base did not include the finale. Furthermore, when I asked Gail about it, she said she had thought about it the night before and even mentioned it to Fabala. Maybe Fabala was IMPR. I think Fabala was IMPR at this time. I can't remember, but this woman named Fabala Frank, I think was all IMPR. And it sounds like she is because she's kind of making a call here. She said it had thought about it the night before and even mentioned to Fabala that she needed to revise and update the finale speech. I asked Gail why she didn't do it. She said that Fabala made a comment like, won't the finale be really different since Tom Cruise will be in the audience? Oh, yeah. Newsflash, Tom Cruise is at this thing. With that comment, Gail said she didn't do it because she didn't know what would be needed. Gail never brought this up to me or anyone else. The outness is that I wasn't thinking of it either since I was onto the IES planning and the OT ambassador meetings on Saturday. This was another major screw up by our office. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay. Leaving the base. Furthermore, when I asked about it, okay, then after the speech had been turned in, IMPR came up to Gail and I and asked us if the awards for Tampa and the ship were in the speech. It was at this time that IMPR said she and Gail attended the noon gold muster that day where the CO Gold brought up getting these awards shot for the night. I was not at muster as I was in the OT ambassador meetings. It had not occurred to either of them that this was needed in the finale speech. Okay, so basically there's a bunch of trophies that are going to get given out. And because they're going to give out the trophies, they need pictures of the trophies to show them right before they give them out. Holy moly. By this point, it was 4:30 p.m. Okay. What time is it right now? Whew, we're an hour in. We're almost done, guys. By this point, it was 4:30 p.m. IMPR got the data on these awards, and Gail added to them to the speech. I simultaneously got all of the completions, and we input that, and Gail ran the speech up to the green room with a disc. There wasn't even a CSW included in this since we had heard COB was writing his finale, and so it was just rushed up to him. A CSW, any submission in Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard wrote, must be accompanied by what's called completed staff work. It's the situation, data, and solution on the problem being solved by the proposal. And they gave him the speech. Any speech that's given to David Miscavige has to have a completed staff work proposal with it. They didn't do that. They just gave him the speech. Okay. This was an OP. OP is an overproduct. That means it's no good. Bogus, faulty. This was an OP as the Tampa award data that IMPR gotten was not what was being done after all. So the speech data was incorrect, i.e. there was no commendation issue for the OT ambassadors, which is what was thought in part. And instead, Cheryl Festa was being given Kakan. Kakan, oh my goodness. Kakan is like an award you get in Scientology. It basically means I think you can do anything, like do anything in Scientology, like unalive somebody, and you can't get in trouble for it. I'm telling you, it's serious. This speech was Gail's dropped ball with no responsibility taken and by the writing officer, Diana, or myself as juror of events, and IMPR who had heard the data but failed to relay it in any manner. Holy moly, there's a lot of nonsense going on. Okay. Whew. IMPR, Gail, and I watched the finale, not the concert. Okay, so there was a concert, and the concert was done for Tom Cruise. He might have been in the audience. We saw that COB did not use anything we provided for the finale. Diana did not attend as she felt ill, so remained in the office where she was doing the IAS metal treatments. Before we left the ship, Diana and IMPR turned over all three IAS Freedom Medal winner video treatments for the videos to the IAS. These will be turned over to CINE. These will also be turned over to CINE. Okay, then the rest of this is from somebody else, and she doesn't mention Gail until the very end when she says the people handlings, all IMPR staff to complete ethics and qual handlings to get fully corrected on the outnesses noted in the debrief. IMPR, DUR events, Karen Hollander, writing officer Diana Hubbard, writer Aaron Mason, writer Gail Armstrong, DUR PR info, and the OACC officer. And then research and assembly officer and IMPR pubs and props. Jeez Louise. Okay. That's the end of that document, guys. That was a long document. Now, let's just recap for a second, okay? So you see, basically, Gail is a writer. That's what she's doing. She's writing for David Miscavige for his videos and his speeches, but she's just a writer. She's not she's not that high up of a person in the management PR area. And even when she was in OSA, she was a writer. So a lot of this information may be news to Emily Armstrong. There's no way Emily, when that first document I showed you that Gail was mentioned in, Emily was like 15 years old. She's probably in this document, she's probably in her late teens when this last document was taking place. Somebody can do the math. I don't know how old Emily is, but she doesn't look older than me. Anyway, and she was, Gail was in the C organization, and Emily was not at this location where any of these things are happening. Okay, now this next document is a very quick one. This is what's called an evaluation. Okay, and an evaluation is something that L. Ron Hubbard wrote a whole bunch of policy letters on, and you're supposed to analyze something that's going wrong and figure out who messed it up. The thing you want to figure out is who messed it up, why did they mess it up, and what the handling is. Well, guess what? Gail shows up again. Now, this is an OSA evaluation. So this is an evaluation being done on the Office of Special Affairs, and it's the OSA long-term unhandled danger condition because David Miscavige is having to handle all of these legal and PR and investigation flaps himself directly, and it's not being done by OSA. So this is situation 1, OSA long-term unhandled danger condition. Anyway, and it says situation. Now this is another great, that last document we read is a great example of how much David Miscavige micromanages every single thing having to do with these events that take place and the videos and the speeches. Now this is how he micromanages the Office of Special Affairs. Despite gaining expertise in the wars that have been led and won by COB and 7 reorganizations to upgrade its operation, OSA has never arrived at the point of being responsible for its own situation and continues to allow the major actions to fly up to COB to work out and execute the handlings as if they belong there and as if it is his hat to work these out and get them done. Okay, so this document alone proves that David Miscavige micromanages legal, PR, all the things that are being done for Scientology, even though as a member of the Religious Technology Center, he's supposed to have nothing to do with the day-to-day operations of Scientology. Obviously, he does. And then it talks about COB. This just blows smoke up COB, how he's awesome. Oh, that's the other thing. If you do an evaluation, L. Ron Hubbard and David Miscavige are the people that had the right idea, and everybody else usually is the ones who have the wrong idea. Okay, statistics. They say all these different statistics. Okay, let's read the data real quick. Over the past 15 years, COB has had to personally single-hand every major war after OSA failed to handle them. The main ones include the resolution of the Christofferson case, the handling of the IRS, resulting in full exemption, tax exemption, Time magazine article and all related situations, Interpol, trademark cases, Clearwater civil and criminal cases, minted handling, St. Pete Times articles, and more. While these major handlings have been ongoing directly by COB, the OSA staff has been quote unquote helping or watching as spectators. Yet the actions that have been done are explicitly per the most basic OSA references: Department of Government Affairs, Department of Official Affairs, attacks on Scientology, targets defense, etc. This continues to present time when more recently this continues to present time when more recently COB had to personally take actions to reorganize CCHR, that's the Citizens Commission on Human Rights International, which is nowhere in terms of eradicating psychiatry and personally handling the UK Home Office. Correct target, COB. Omitted handling, OSA int. And they basically just keep going through all these things and they say who messed it up. And it has all these people: Karen Powell, Linda Hamill, Edith Pacelli, Lynn Farney, Jim Morrow, Neil Levin, Heber Jentz. These are all the people that have messed all this up. And it just goes on. And it just goes through all these people that messed all this stuff up. And it just goes on and on. Okay, good. And then it says at the end of this, it does a little like a tally. Okay. After you figure out you find out all the people. Okay. So it says, I got to go back up one. It says at the end here, it says plus point count, correct target 1, COB 1. So that's the only plus point of this whole thing was from David Miscavige. Now it has an out point count and it has all these out points. Those are the bad things that L. Ron Hubbard, he listed out all these things called out points and all these things called plus points. And then it lists all these people what their tally is. And the OSA int aides and execs, they got a 10 count. That's a lot of mess ups. Even more than one, if you're the top one, that's too many. And then it says the why: intentional non-compliance from the top of the OSA org board down created the necessity for more orders, setting in an operation basis of requiring orders and continuing vicious circles of bypass being required to get these orgs' purpose achieved. Ethics why: service facsimiles, games conditions, and individual out ethics. I'm not going to describe any of those because it would take literally another hour. So it's just a bunch of Scientology mumbo jumbo is the reason. The who's, and then it says who messed this up: Kurt Wieland, AH. Who's AH? Ann Hogarth. Kurt Wieland, Ann Hogarth, and the individual OSA execs and staff who have gone into agreement with this status quo. Okay. And then the ideal scene, once you figure out what's bad, you basically have to say, well, what's the ideal scene that we should have, that we should work towards? And it says OSA int in ethics, on purpose and on hat, correctly positioned as an integral part of the overall team, not a flap crossroads sucking COB's attention through its dropped balls and worsened situations, but executing coordinated strategy and creating the outreach and external safe points and global impact that brings about a changed civilization and establishes the indispensability of Scientology. Whew, that's some heavy duty craziness right there. Okay, and then it goes into the handling and all that stuff. Okay, well, there's a whole bunch of these, and we're just going to skip through them now that we've done this. OSA lost purpose. Again, if you want to read all this nonsense, you feel free to download this in the link in the description, and we'll do it again. We got another one here. Let's see who got did anybody? Let's just see what the tally was on this one. Bunch of people messed everything up. Oh, here we go. Plus point count. This is a good one. Let's get to that real quick. Okay, so plus point count. Correct target. LRH, L. Ron Hubbard. They're saying, oh, he had a good idea. LRH, the HRIC OSA, Lisa Goodman, and the Guardian's office. The Guardian's office got a plus. Okay, out points. Who got the out points? Yeah. Bunch more OSA people. Rinder, Wieland. Oh, bunch of people. Bunch of past and present execs. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Let's get this one. Gail's in here somewhere. Let's get to her. Plus point count on this one's got LRH. COB got 2. And Action CMO Inc. got 1, even though that was probably David Miscavige when he was an Action CMO Inc. Okay, let me just see which page this is so I can make sure I'm in the right place here. Okay, and then we've got Corinne Powell, out points. Oh, she killed it on the out points on this one. She chalked it up to the highest. Okay, then Lisa Goodman got 1 again. And then Corinne Powell. Okay, let's see who else got out points. Here we go. The out points. Ooh, Gail Armstrong got 3. Aaron Mason got 3. So basically, Gail got thrown under the bus for doing something wrong, and it's right above there in some of the targets just by not handling PR, not having trained PRs, and not handling the public relations, so that David Miscavige had to do it. Okay, let's see if there's any more Gail stuff in this one. Gail Armstrong, doofy doof. I think that's pretty much it for this one. Okay, this next one, you're going to love this one. Okay, so someone redacted my page got redacted. Okay, so this next one, this is very interesting. This next one is from the Maiden Voyage 2006. This is one of the last documents. It says 2006 Maiden Voyage IAS anti-drug speech. Gail Armstrong. Gail Armstrong, between 2003 and 2006, moved up the ranks. I want to say she became the speechwriter or the video writer. Then she became the director of events. And I think eventually she did actually become IMPR, the head of the International Management Public Relations. And she gave the speech at the Maiden Voyage that happened three years later at the Freewinds. And this is her speech. And there's a video of her delivering this speech. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole speech because it's just whatever David Miscavige wrote for her. But then, he is the one who introduced her in this video. He entered the speech before this. Welcome to the stage, Miss Gail Armstrong. And then she comes up. Okay, the next document, we're going to go through all this. Okay, good. Now this is from 19 October 2006. And this is the IAS event that happens in England that's now happening in 2006. And the IAS campaign speech is being delivered by Gail Armstrong again. So she rose all the way up to actually becoming a speaker and doing these speeches. And I guess she wasn't boofing it anymore because he's letting her do it. And so this speech here goes through this whole thing. Again, she is introduced by David Miscavige in this document here. And it goes through. Again, you can read the whole thing if you want to, but that's the end of that. That's the end of the document. Okay, so the crazy thing about this, though, is that not only are there documents in the spy files, but sometimes there's videos. So let's put this up here real quick. This is at the IAS event. That's David Miscavige on stage right there. He's going to do...
Working forward from reducing psychiatry to something you can stick in a hazardous waste bin, we come to our fourth dynamic, salvage campaigns. Yeah. As the phrase implies, these campaigns are configured globally, analyzing population groups according to greatest needs, then programming delivery to hundreds of thousands in a single sweep.
Worked over.
We do not, however, have to spend any time isolating the ruins. They're obvious. They're what destroys family units, wrecks educational systems, crashes economies, and otherwise halts all cultural advancement. And just as barriers to living on the first dynamic are also barriers to auditing, So it is with the fourth dynamic,
There's the
meaning
stage.
if it stops the forward progress of civilization, it'll stop you from clearing a planet. So no, this isn't just charity, this is effective technical delivery. And to tell you about it in exactly those terms, please welcome Ms. Gail Armstrong.
Now we're actually going to see the video that we just saw the speech for. This is her. That's Gail. And I'll be the truck director. Oh, May, hi, and hi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our global IS campaigns are designed to rescue populations from illiteracy, immorality, drug abuse, and a wanton disregard for human rights. But the operative word here is populations.
Anyway, we're not going to watch the whole thing. I may put that video there. I might give that video to Tony as well, Tony Ortega. So where the documents are, maybe we can put that little clip up there of Gail as well. So what the hell? What is all this? What does all this mean? It seems like a bunch of nonsense, but basically Gail is being abused by David Miscavige as a Sea Org member. And one of the things that Tony Ortega covered in an article on his website is that she did 2 hate videos on Mike Rinder's Scientology hate website. And so Gail, you saw, she's just getting obliterated and messed around with by David Miscavige full time. All this whole area of events just constantly being tortured by David Miscavige. And she then sticks up for David Miscavige that he's not doing anything. It's this guy, and the people who left are the ones. Meanwhile, you've got her daughter, who's not in the Sea organization. It's just a Scientologist. Then when Danny Masterson goes to trial, she sticks up for Danny Masterson. So there's a really weird dynamic in Scientology where if you want to stay connected to your family members that are in Scientology, you have to stick up for David Miscavige in Scientology. If you throw Scientology under the bus, then you will be declared a suppressive person, or you will at least be disconnected from your Scientology family members. Now, this is often Tom Cruise is brought up in terms of this family, his own family, and him disconnecting from his ex-wives and his own daughter because his daughter chose, his daughter went with, Surrey went with Katie Holmes. She took her daughter. So he could, in the world of Scientology, if you're Tom Cruise, he could talk to Surrey. No one's going to care. But because Tom Cruise is such a fervent, like just a total crazy dedicated Scientologist, he is following the L. Ron Hubbard policy to a T, that he will not speak with his daughter because his daughter is connected to a suppressive person, which is Katie Holmes. So if Emily Armstrong, basically, if she denounces Scientology or says anything about Scientology publicly, that is a high crime in Scientology, and it is under a penalty of being declared a suppressive person. So it's just, that is how Scientology works. So in order for Emily to get out of this mess, and if she says anything more, or says anything bad about Scientology, she very well may have to choose whether she wants to be in this band and talk about this and sort this public relations flap out about supporting Danny Masterson and also supporting an organization that tears apart families and is up to all sorts of dastardly deeds. And if she doesn't do that, she doesn't say anything, then she'll be fine. She'll be in Scientology and everything will be great. She might not stay in Linkin Park, or Linkin Park might kick her to the curb and find somebody else. I don't know. I don't know what the Linkin Park guys think about all this nonsense, but they and Emily are in a precarious spot right now because of Scientology, and because Emily's mother is connected to David Miscavige in some sort of way, and at least in the past was doing things directly with and for David Miscavige. It creates a situation for Gail where she may also get in trouble and may get booted back down to OSA or Los Angeles or something because of this whole thing. She can't be connected in any way with David Miscavige. So I don't know. I don't know how this thing's going to go down. I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but this hopefully will give you a little bit of glimpse into some of the additional insanity that's covered in these Scientology spy files. And these are all of the documents that I have where Gail Armstrong appears in these documents. I couldn't find any other documents. If she's referred to in abbreviations, I couldn't find those either. So hopefully these are all of them. I appreciate you guys for sticking around for this whole time. Again, all the links will be in the description below if you want to get the documents. Also, I'll put up the link to the article Tony Ortega already did about this. And yeah, crazy, guys. It's crazy. Let me know in the comments below if you guys, if you like this, if you want me to do if there's any other people you want me to search for in the documents to see if we should cover, and we'll see if we can do that. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in there. Thanks for sticking around for an hour and a half to hear all the Scientology craziness. And yeah, until next time. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel, feel free to check out the merch store link in the description. We have Hail Xenu, Xenu is my homeboy, and BFG branded mouse pads, shirts, mugs, all sorts of other stuff in there that helps us to bring you new content on a regular basis. You can also pick up a copy of my book, Blown for Good, Behind the Iron Curtain of Scientology, in hardback, Kindle, and Audible versions as well. There's also a link to our podcast, and you can get that on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to watch another video, you can click on this link right here, or you can click on this one here, or you can click on the subscribe button right here. Thanks a lot. Until next time.